many Bostonians stayed away from the North End. But not everyone. In the 1820s, Irish immigrants began to move into the area. It was one of the few places they could afford to live. They packed into tenement houses in a small part of the North End. Tenements were larger old buildings that had been carved up into small apartments. Families crowded into 1 or 2-room apartments where disease spread quickly. In time, many Irish immigrants settled into their lives in America and began to earn more money. They moved out of the North End, and Jewish people from Eastern Europe moved in. But they also left the North End tenements when they eventually became more successful. The next wave of immigrants came from Italy. By 1900, there were 14,000 Italian immigrants living in Boston's North End. Like the Irish and Jewish people before them, the Italians faced discrimination. Just as they had been of the Irish, Americans were suspicious of their Catholic religion. Italians from places in southern Italy, like Sicily, faced racism because of their darker skin. Their food and its smells seemed strange to older, more established Bostonians. To them, the Italians just didn't seem American enough. Many Italian immigrants worked at jobs on the docks. They were laborers in the warehouses and the train yards. Others built small businesses in the neighborhood. They sold fruit from carts on the street or opened tailor shops or grocery stores. There were Italian doctors, dentists, and banks in the North End. Families were close. They learned to help each other with life in the United States. Women cared for each other's children. They leaned out their windows to share news with neighbors in the next building. In 1910, about 28,000 Italian immigrants were living in the North End. They were packed into a residential area, where their homes were, that measured less than half a square mile. The commercial part of the neighborhood, where the industry and businesses were, was jam-packed too. The city of Boston had buildings for stonecutters, carpenters, and blacksmiths. Carts pulled by horses squeezed past trucks with motors. Offices nearby were filled with employees, and the docks that had been busy for hundreds of years were still there. Several railroad lines crisscrossed around the docks, carrying goods in and out of Boston. In the early 1900s, the Boston Elevated Railway Company had built trains on tracks that ran above the streets. Elevated trains rumbled over the busy North End all day. It was one of the busiest, most crowded parts of the city. And in 1915, a business called United States Industrial Alcohol Company, USIA, decided it was the perfect place to build a giant molasses storage tank. Chapter 2. A Rush to Build. Molasses is sweet, but it has a bitter history in the United States. Beginning in the early 1600s, molasses was a key part of the triangular trade, the path of the transatlantic slave trade. This route was shaped by the winds and currents between Europe, Africa, and the Americas. The triangular trade. In the 1600s and 1700s, European and American ships regularly sailed to the west coast of Africa. They traded goods like cloth and rum for human beings, whom they enslaved. The enslaved African people were shipped to the American colonies and to the Caribbean. They were forced to work on plantations that grew sugarcane, tobacco, and cotton. Sugar, tobacco, and cotton were put onto ships and sent to Europe from the Americas, where they were sold and also used to make cloth and rum. Then the cycle began all over again. As the plantation system in the southern colonies grew, New England ships began to sell enslaved people directly to those plantation owners. Disagreements over the issue of enslaving people eventually led to the U.S. Civil War, and then to many long-standing inequalities for Black people in the United States, and molasses played a key role in that. So what exactly is molasses, and why is it so important? Molasses is a